All right. Hey, everyone. This is the first episode of our YouTube show. It's to be determined. We're not sure of the name yet, but we're working on some ideas here. I'm Andrew, and this is my co-host.
Robert.
And this show will be about the online college basketball simulator, your favorite online college basketball simulator, Hardwood. Um, and it's it's just in a game we found during the pandemic, the COVID pandemic, and we love it. Rob, talk about how your feelings about Hardwood.
Well, for starters, is there a more convenient game to take up your time during the pandemic than Hardwood? I really don't think so. I remember the first day that you told me you found an online college basketball simulator, and I was like, this guy's crazy. And then within like what, 2 weeks, I was like, I want another team. So it's clearly the best like college basketball simulator out there. And I don't know about you guys, but 9:30 in the morning, I'm waking up checking the results of games. 10 o'clock, we're checking the recruiting news, and then we probably talk about it for what, an hour and a half after, if not just intermittent throughout the day if we're busy. But it's one of those things where morning we're checking schedule, checking recruiting news, talking about it throughout the day. Nighttime we're game planning for the next day's games. Come on, we all love it. That's why we have a Discord. That's why there's so many users. Such a great game.
Yeah, I remember telling you basically the next day after I signed up, and I said, Rob, I was awake till 3 a.m. checking recruits with my first team.
I think
And yeah,
the funny part is that you were like, "Oh, I took a college basketball team in the simulator," and here I am assuming that it's going to be like UCLA or Stanford or like Washington or something like that. And you're like, "Nah, I got the Dominican University of California Penguins," and I was like, "Huh?" I was like, "What?" And then you were like, "Yeah, go check the available teams," and then I was like, "I don't know any of these teams, like hardly any." So
yeah. So you mentioned some of our teams, or I guess my team. I I'm the president of the Dominican California University of no Dominican California Penguins. And anytime you gotta put the state in parentheses, you know it's not a good sign for that school. We had other teams like the California University of Pennsylvania, what, Vulcans?
the
Is that their
Vulcans, the
mascot?
mighty Vulcans,
Anytime it's in parentheses, if you're a parentheses team, you're not a big name school, or really.
probably a little
But
sus.
yeah, Dominican, I'm very proud of where they've gone so far. And then, like Rob said, a few weeks later, we were like, we love this game. We need another team. So my second team is the College of New Rochelle Blue Angels.
Blue Angels.
My first Division One team, my first team to promote to Division One, which is quite an accomplishment, really.
I think you should talk about that a little bit. So remind everyone that you started in D3. I mean,
Yeah, both of these teams started in D3. I didn't want to pick a team that was so good right away, and so competitive. I didn't want a complete disaster either, though. So I did some scouting, I did some snooping around, and I found talented teams that were in a good spot. And then, yeah, the Blue Angels, New Rochelle Blue Angels, they were the first team to promote I took over these teams in the 2013 season. So they promoted right away in that first season to Division Two, and then we were in Division Two for a couple years, and then we just promoted after this past 2016 season to Division One for the first time in program history. So that was pretty awesome to go through. They dominated, so that was also fun.
yeah, that's a really cool ascension, obviously. To go from D3 to D2 to D1, it just shows that whatever your system is, it's working. So now the goal obviously is to try and get to the highest division in the game, but that's a tall task. But I still think it's just such a cool story to go D3, D2 to D1 that fast. It's a really cool situation.
Yeah. And what about your teams though?
Yeah,
You
so
mentioned that.
speaking of not wanting to take disasters, I don't know about that one. So when I signed up for the game, I stepped into Santa Clara, who was just, they had two scholarship players on the entire roster, and both of them were not good. right? Our best player was a walk-on, a one-star walk-on by the name of Arnie Daniels. So naturally, I was like, okay, I want to build this program from the floor up, from the bottom up, just put my fingerprints all over it. What's interesting is this was before I realized that not having a lot of scholarships, a lot of scholarship players would benefit me in recruiting, right? So I just happened to take over a program that had no scholarship players, had like very little success ever, no tourney wins all time, um, just because I wanted to take over a project. So we took our 1-star walk on who just happened to be a really good outside shooter, set him to double plus plus, and just let him score 28 a game. That was the beauty of my very first season. But we landed a couple key recruits that helped us, redefine the culture. And just this past season, promoted to D2. So now we're in D2, off to a nice little 4-0 non-con start. So we'll see how the D2 season goes there. And then my second team um, is SUNY Oswego, so State University of New York Oswego. And it's really funny because when me and Andrew were both signing up for second teams, actually I think we were playing basketball that day, weren't we? Trying to get like some outdoor fresh
We
air.
were.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
And we were like discussing Rochelle and Oswego, and you gave me the choice between the two teams. And I was like, oh, SUNY Oswego Lakers, which, like, if you can't tell, that's a really convenient fit. But I also thought SUNY Oswego was in a better position to promote, and I kind of just wanted to be the first to promote. And it turns out they weren't in the better position to promote because Rochelle did. Um, so I kind of, but now I love that team. So it all works out.
Yeah,
But
they're really talented. The future looks really good for Oswego and Santa Clara, really.
yeah, Oswego just
Yeah.
jumped up to D2 as well. I'm really excited. I think they have a chance to promote right away too. So if they have 2 successive seasons of promotion, that'd be awesome. Um, yeah, I really can't wait for that one.
Yeah, I remember so Rob and we went to school together, so that's how we know each other personally. It wasn't just like I found this random person online. And I told him about it. I figured he would be really into Hardwood. Um, it's a game. I was playing another college basketball simulator. It was okay. It was fine, but it wasn't enough. This game, it's ideal because it provides such a more realistic experience, wouldn't you say, Rob?
Yeah, I'd
In
say so.
recruiting and game planning.
I think the game planning aspect of it, like you can actually have impact over whether or not your team wins or loses a game or its conference based on your game planning, right? Like right away with Santa Clara, I recruited a bunch of high speed, high IQ guys, and I jacked up the pace, and that's the style of offense I wanted to play. But you like recruited really long, like defensive strong players, and you slow down the pace and want to like grind it out defensively. But like utilizing matchups, oh, my power forward is 6'11 and there's a 6'7. Like little things like that make a difference in this game, right? And so
Yeah.
if you are an active president, if you care about your teams, you can easily game plan your way to being like a good team as long as you have the talent. And if you don't have the talent,
Yeah.
it's really like there's so many recruits to choose from, right? And there's so many variables to recruiting. It's like I feel like we're on like one of those recruiting websites for like high school basketball where it's like or 247 Sports or whatever, and like going through actual players and reading evals. It's it's like second to none. It's really unique.
Yeah, and the other thing I really like about it is that it's it's fast paced enough. Something's happening every single day. Games, recruiting, game planning, like you mentioned. We check up all these different times of day for these different things and doing these things. But you don't have to do that if you don't have the time or you don't have the ability to. You know, but it's fast paced enough to do that. But it's also deep enough. There's so many recruits. There's so much to learn and really think about that you can dig deep if you can, like we kind of have and
Yeah,
like to. So
and
that's
it
the
it
beauty of it.
it doesn't take forever to go from terrible to decent, right?
Right.
Like
Yeah.
because a season lasts what like a little over a month, maybe.
2 months. I think it's about
Yes.
2 months.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, with off season everything, roughly about 2 months. I mean, think about like a regular fantasy basketball. If you mess up on draft night, you're done, right? Or any
Hmm.
kind of other fantasy type thing. But in this case, like within 4 months, your team could be really good. Like you just have to hit on a class or two, and then you're there.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, this is like dynasty basketball, but on a quicker time scale. You don't have to wait years for a contract to end, or a year to draft a player you missed on, or flip your roster. This happens within months. um, and so that's really the beauty of it. So yeah, it's been really fun to find. We found I found it in May, I think, during the pandemic, and
Yeah.
it really has been awesome to play.
It's
Yeah.
it's so hard to believe that we've been playing since May,
Yeah.
like May, and then we're about to hit January 2021. Like that's so hard to believe. But then at the same
Mhm.
time, I know I've been on hardwood every single day since the day we signed up till now. Like I don't think there's a day I've missed it, even if it's just like a quick check of something, you know?
Yeah, I don't think there's been a day where I haven't logged in, and there was a time where I was spending probably 10 plus hours a day on it. And I mean, I've
Andrew's an
definitely
extremist, all right, guys.
brought it.
So
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I
Andrew
brought it
wants
down
to
some.
Andrew wants to recruit like high upside 2 stars because that just shows how his recruiting prowess.
Yeah, some of it is just like I want to show how good I can be. But this show, we've talked a bit about our teams. This show is not going to be about our teams only. We want to talk about anything and everything about Hardwood. We want this game to grow and become awesome. It is awesome, but we want everyone, as many people as possible, to really experience that. So that's why we're doing this.
Yeah, I mean, we want more people to sign up for the game to have fun like we are. We don't want to see any conferences, no matter if it's like the bottom Division 3 conferences have like 14 bots, right? Because like every team can be turned around. Every team can. And
Yeah.
so we want like as many users as possible. It just makes a more competitive atmosphere, more fun atmosphere. So
Yeah. I mean, Rob, think about the thrill of signing a player. I mean, there's no bigger
I
rush.
mean, we can highlight a few key guys that made our entire weeks because we signed them on a college basketball simulator.
Literally, I
Like,
had one of the most, uh, you know, good things to happen to me professionally on the same day as signing a huge recruit, and I was way more excited about the recruit than something that happened in my real life.
yeah, no, and I can vouch for that because expecting to talk about this professional development all day long, instead we talked about this new recruit. And he wasn't even a 5 star. Like I can't imagine how you would react if you signed a 5 star. You might spontaneously combust.
Hey, we'll see. We'll see. I'm starting. I'm getting in the race on some 5 stars, so we'll see.
Don't give away any tips here.
Oh yeah, yeah. So that's one thrill that we get. There's also getting an upset against a team that you didn't expect to beat. I mean, that's huge. That you just you feel different the rest of the day, really.
Yeah. I mean, even on the flip side, right? Like some of our teams that we expected to have really good tourney runs last year, flamed
Yeah,
out in round one, round two. And it's like heartbreaking. But then, I mean, literally heartbreaking. We were depressed over the game for like a few days.
we were a little depressed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, we had like 3 seeds go out in round one. You had a two
Two,
seed
I
go
had a
out in
two
round one.
seed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we were not happy. But I mean, now it makes it that much more, we're that much more hungry for tourney successes this season. So, you
Yeah,
know,
and I mean the thing what we really want to do is create a program, a team with an identity, prefer one we really enjoy. Rob talked about Santa Clara being this run and gun team, my team's being about length and defense and grinding it out. Yeah, that's what anyone who plays fantasy sports wants to be able to do, or these sim games you want to be able to do, and this game really provides that in spades.
yep.
So Rob and I talk about this game so much already, we figured we'd share and you know do
Like
this.
we don't have any podcasting experience. This is like we're doing this because we love the game so much and we want to have fun. And like our vision for the future is that like some of the people that are more active in the Discord or some people that are more active users like might be able to jump on and contribute some, talk about their teams, or maybe they become like a regional expert or something. We have pretty high hopes for the podcast, but again, it's a small universe, but like a group of dedicated players, and we just really want to have fun with it.
Yeah, yeah, you mentioned the Discord's awesome. There's been some really helpful people there, same on the forums. So yeah, it's a great community, I'd say, that we've joined in on, and we hope it can grow.
Yeah.
But we're going to start by looking at some of the top teams in every division and some conferences, and then highlighting certain teams, certain players, um, and getting on into it. So in Hardwood, there's three divisions, just like in real life, but it's not quite like real life. So there's D1, there's D2,
It's
there's
not even
D3. But
close to real life.
how is it different? Explain how it's different.
I mean, for starters, some of the top teams in the game are teams that you may have never heard of before. And that's
Yeah,
another unique aspect to Hardwood, right? So some of these presidents have been around since like the start of the game and have been really good presidents and have dominated. And as such, like their teams are top 25. If we quickly glance through the top 25 poll, I mean, number one team is Rochester, number two Simpson, number four the national title winners, IU, Purdue, Indianapolis. So what is it, IUPUI?
yeah, yeah.
Lewis and
I mean, I've
Clark is
heard of them in
fifth.
real
Like,
life, but
yeah, I've heard of them for sure, but like not as like national champions.
they're not a powerhouse. Yeah, really. Yeah.
Misericordia, Sacred
Mhm.
Heart, Francis Marion. So, I mean, UTEP, Texas El Paso is 22nd. I've been there.
Right.
They're never going to be 22nd.
I've been there too. Yeah, I've visited
Yeah.
their campus once.
So, yeah. But again, that's just what makes it so much fun, right? So
Yeah.
maybe I'll start by talking about Rochester, the number one team in the game. We'll just highlight some of the main teams here if you want. You want to jump into that?
Oh, well, actually, I wanted to mention another big difference though too.
Sure.
It's not, teams are not stuck in Division One or Division Two or Division Three. There's a promotion relegation system. So if you are not a good team in a higher division, you will drop down. And if you're a good team in those lower divisions, you'll move up. And so it's got that constant movement where you need to stay on top of your game. If you're moving up, but if you're moving down, it's not hopeless for you. You can eventually come back up. And
Yeah.
I think that's important. I think that's really cool.
I mean, college sports don't have promotion relegation. I don't know if anybody's fans of like, Premier League or anything out there, but some of the most exciting like end of season games end up being relegation games where it's like, does the team get sent down or do they stay up? And that happens here too. When a team's fighting to stay up versus getting relegated, it makes a difference, especially when it comes to recruiting, like D1, D2, D3 recruiting. I mean, it makes a big deal, so
Yeah.
it's unmatched.
Yeah. So all right, let's go and start with Division One teams. You were gonna
Okay.
start off with the team.
Yeah, so let's highlight the Rochester Yellow Jackets. So Rochester, first of all, as currently we sit on Sunday, December 27th, is the number one ranked team in the game. Okay, the number one ranked team in the
Wow.
game, and
They've
obviously,
they've been number one for a few days even
yeah,
actually.
yeah, they're pretty strong. And obviously, like early season, the rankings tend to fluctuate a lot because RPI matters and stuff like that.
Right.
But like this Rochester team is loaded. So like when we look at their schedule a little bit, in terms of some of the teams they've beaten, like Cal State Dominguez Hills, pretty easily. They beat
Wow, they beat
Western.
Cal State Dominguez Hills.
They beat Dominguez
Wow.
Hills by 21.
Wow, they
By
are a
21.
good
Yeah.
team.
They beat Western New Mexico 149 to 53.
Oh my gosh.
Rochester beat Western New Mexico 149 to 53.
That's almost 100 points.
It's literally 96. Yeah.
Wow.
And then the next two games were blowouts. So like they're obviously at the point now where they're extending, like their point differential in the season's already plus 173. We're four
Wow.
games in plus 173.
Wow, yeah.
I mean, it's disgusting. Also, like this top conference, so I1, every single team in the conference has a positive point differential to start the four games in non-con.
Wow.
So like Missouri Kansas City is 2-2 and sits at the bottom. They're plus 19.
Right, right. Wow.
I mean, we've never been at this top of this like high of a level yet, but that's nuts. So
Right.
yeah, so like Rochester, we'll just highlight some of their best players. So CC Bolin is a 183 SI redshirt senior shooting guard, right?
Hmm.
So 13 potential. So obviously he like grew really well and hit his ceiling. 183 SI is like really up there. He's an 18 in outside shot, 18 in shooting range. So, I mean, what is he like, Steph Curry or something? He just Klay Thompson maybe. He's just
Yeah.
stroking.
Yeah.
Um, Averaged 23.8 points per game last year. Is averaging 28 so far this year. Like straight up scorer.
Ooh.
Yeah. I mean, I wonder in this scenario if this might be someone who like leads their all-time scoring or like hits their all-time scoring record, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Not entirely sure.
Yeah.
But then they also, it's weird because their second best player is also a shooting guard, redshirt senior, Fabian Alcantar, 171 SI, 13 pot, but he was only a 3-star. So, you know, those 13 potentials might be more important than the star rankings, but he's really good.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I believe he's starting at, because they're both shooting guards, but he starts at point guard. He starts at point guard, so 6'3.5" point guard.
Ah.
Yeah,
So he fits them both in, which is good. Yeah.
he fits him. You got to find time for your best players. I mean, this
Yeah.
guy's basketball IQ is 19, his passing is 13, his ball handling 17. So you know, obviously, it's enough to get the job done. Looks like his career high in terms of assists is 2.6, but this year he's
Hmm.
averaging 5. So I think maybe he might be stepping into the point guard role for the first time this year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, they're going to be
Yeah.
a
We're.
really good team.
Mm-hmm. We're gonna bring up some terms that if you're new, you may not be familiar with. So pot is potential, and that's on a scale we think from 1 or 0 to 20, but the highest we've ever seen is 15. So if you're 13, that's really good. There's been a bunch of 14s. There's been a few 15s. So those are like the top guys. 12 is pretty good. 11 is solid. 10 is usable. Anything below that, you better find some very interesting qualities for those
Yeah.
players to play.
But it's also not really static, right? Like we talk about, I know in the Discord a lot of guys talk about like, oh, if you're a 12 or 13 pot, your ceiling is this SI, or if
Mm-hmm.
you're 11 pot, your ceiling is this SI. And maybe that's the case, but like the growth rate in terms of SI growth rate doesn't necessarily mean like if you're an 11 pot, you're going to grow 10 year over year or 12 year over year. There's a lot of factors with that. And so maybe you have like an 11 pot guy who reaches his ceiling really quickly and is a really good player for you for a while,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah, yeah. And you can even go past that. So Rob's saying SI, that's skill index. It's really just the skills all added up. It's not, it's not complicated. There's, different uh, skills, passing and shooting and
Sorry, I probably
whatnot.
should have highlighted some of those.
No, it's okay. It's yeah. Just in case anyone new is listening or watching this. So, that's the number. So, I think there's 14 skills. Um, so if you're 10 in all of them, you're 140 SI, which is pretty solid. Not that that ever really happens to be 10s across the board.
Yeah.
But Rob's saying these players are 180s. So that means they are very, very good.
Yeah, like 183 is really up there. That means some of your categories are almost maxed out, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And in the case of a shooting guard, like you could argue two of your most important categories are outside shooting and range.
Mm-hmm.
If that's on a scale of 1 to 20 and they're both at 18, I mean
Wow. That's
that's a like a dead shooter right there. That's like a dead
mhm.
eye guy, you know?
Yeah, yeah. Yeah. So yeah, Rob said the scales from 1 to 20 there too. So yeah, 18s are top notch, really.
Yeah. Yeah. That's getting it done. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, anything else about Rochester?
They have a really young coach, so that was quite interesting because a lot of the
Mm-hmm.
top teams are, you know, coaches that have been around for 20 years and they're in terms of the coaching skills almost maxed out.
Mm-hmm.
But their coach is tens across the board. He's a young guy.
Oh. Oh yeah.
Yeah, yeah, he's a young guy. So we'll have to see how that plays out. He doesn't have a reputation. So we'll talk a little bit
Which
more about coaching reputations later.
yeah, we'll get into that a bit later.
Yeah.
So yeah, one of the teams I wanted to highlight in D1 was Azusa Pacific, and Azusa is a fast rising team. They were actually in the same conference as one of my teams just 2 seasons ago, and now they are already in league level 3 because they have been very, very good. Um, so they're currently ranked 6th in the whole game for this season at least. But they have the top rated TPI, which is Team Power Index. That's kind of like a measure of how good your overall team is, or at least the top 10 players, and particularly the starters. So they have the top TPI in the whole game by like a decent amount. They're the only team over 160. So right, we talked
Wow.
about 140 being solid. This whole team averages. It's a weighted average of 160. That's really high. So I
That's
remember,
insane.
yeah, I remember game planning for this team a few years ago when they were, in the same conference as me, and they were a bit younger. So now they have a bunch of redshirt seniors and redshirt juniors leading the way, and the top two guys are Mason McNulty, the point guard at 180, and the power forward. I guess it looks like he's playing center now. John Holman, also at 180. So he has two. The president Basoy has two 180 SI players leading the way, both 5 stars, both 13 potentials. Um, McNulty just looks like an absolute monster. Outside shooting is solid. The range, the perimeter defense is good at 15. IQ is 15. Passing and handling are 14 and 15, respectively. Speed is 17. Like, this is as good as it gets, really.
Yeah.
Um, Yeah, he's good. And then Holman is a 6'6" guy, so he's a little short to be a big man, to be honest. But with 17 rebounding and 17 interior defense, he maintains his own inside defensively. Um, yeah, and then even behind that, there's a 171 4-star small forward and Dad McConnell. I remember him when he signed with Azusa. He was highly anticipated there.
Yeah.
And
We
then
talked about that
Raphael.
one.
Yeah, we did talk about that. Yeah. Raphael Kiefer. I'm not sure if Azus is even starting him yet. It looks like not quite even.
He
He's
started he
come off.
started in the last game.
Oh, he started in the last game. Okay.
Yeah, against Lewis.
He's come off the bench for most of his career though, so it's interesting that Azusa is their fourth best player by talent or by skill at least is coming off the bench. It's a strategy lots of teams do. But it's interesting when you're at that top near that top level to do that.
Yeah.
I know Basoy is really fond of his center Alejandro Rosado, because he's a beast inside in the paint, and he's only 6'8", but he's got 16 interior scoring and 18 strength, which means he is moving people around in the post.
And it's like,
And yeah.
sorry, don't mean to interrupt, but
Mhm.
so we talk about the fact that their big guys are sort of shorter, right? And how teams kind of compensate for
Mhm.
that, how you still be successful. And of course, he's short, but like
Oh
he's
yeah.
dominant on the inside still. But like if you look at their game tactics, right? They're
Mhm.
not really a high transition team, so sitting at 2.7% transition. This is at least, looking at some of their previous games. But they're
Mhm.
heavy zone, so they're like 55+% zone, right? Which you can sort of hide your shorter big guys in a zone,
Yeah.
or try to hide weaker defenders. Of course, this team doesn't really have weak defenders, but just as an example.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
That's a really good point. I've talked to Basoya a bit in the Discord about his strategy with his team, because I noticed when I was first scouting them that they play, yeah, pretty slow. Normally, at least conventional wisdom on the forums is that you want to play fast when you're really talented. When you're more talented than your opponent, you want to play fast in order to increase the number of possessions, the number of chances that you, as the more talented team, can impose your talent advantage over the other team. But Azusa Pacific, even though they're the top ranked team in that skill, they are playing slow. So that's interesting. I thought that was odd, but they play slow. They are extremely good defensively, but they also have speed, so they can keep up with anyone who tries to speed up the tempo against them.
yeah.
But they just don't let you, really.
But it's also another
Yeah.
it's another point about Hardwood, right? Is that you don't have to like play the conventional basketball, right? So you don't have to be like, oh, I need a 7 foot big man who's only gonna provide blocks or strong interior defense or something like that, you can play shorter guys and then game plan around it, especially if
Hmm.
those shorter guys are really skilled, like we're talking about here, you know?
Right, right. Yeah, yeah. I mean,
And it just speaks to like the game planning ability that we were talking about earlier, sort of how you have that flexibility.
yeah, there's definitely this trade-off. Usually, I mean, it's hard to find the perfect player who is skilled and big and has the skills in the right place and all that. So, usually there's this trade-off between size and skill and all these other different factors really that we'll get into, throughout the this week and in future episodes that we do and continue on with. So yeah, that's
Yeah.
Azusa. Um, but they're just in league level 3. They're not at that top conference. They're hoping to make it there, but right now they're just in league level 3. So they hope to make a run from there, which they can because last year's national champion was also in league level 3.
which is which is really cool.
Yeah, yeah. You don't have to be that top team. But yeah, all right. So that's Azusa. At least I felt. Yeah, I mean, they look like a solid team for now and the future. So good job to Basoy there. But yeah, what's the next team we've got?
So I think just to stay on topic here, let's jump on to the
Oh,
fact that
sure.
there's a lot of really good California schools, right? Maybe
Yeah, yeah,
highlighted by APU.
yeah, yeah. They're led by APU, but if you look at their rankings by the TPI, California has 4 of the top 7 teams, which I mean, we're from California. I mean, we know it's got a lot of talent, but this game really says, yeah, you got a lot of talent in the
Yeah.
state.
APU at 1, Stanford at 2, San Jose State at 4, Cal State Fullerton at 7. I mean, that's state domination right there, if I've ever seen it, for
And then
sure.
even St. Mary's at number 18,
Yeah.
Cal State East Bay at 28, USC
USC
at
at
31.
31. Uh-huh.
So it's not just those top teams. It goes down, and the state is deep, and that makes sense. This game is it's a simulator, so it does go by statistical distributions. And California is a very populous state, so it's
Yeah.
gonna have a lot of chances to have a good talent.
Right. Especially when you're some of the top teams and you're really going to take that, you're really going to compete for that top talent, right? And some of these teams are
Hmm.
the top teams, so they're just dominating in terms of that.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, it's interesting to note.
It's also, for us, if we think about it, as Santa Clara and Dominican, it's kind of like, dang, we have all these top teams to compete against for recruits,
Yeah,
right? Like on a season by season basis.
yeah. But Azusa Pacific is not traditionally a powerhouse school in real life, so who's to say we can't be there eventually, right?
Oh, we're gunning for you, Azusa. We're gunning.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. We are gunning for you.
We're gunning for you. That's just to put you on
Um,
notice, you know?
yeah,
If you have
yeah.
objection, please let us know in the Discord.
So Stanford's particularly interesting. You mentioned them; they're the number 2 team in TPI, but they're interesting for another reason. They're president, right?
Yeah. So, I mean, it's a really good team, right? And their president, Steph 30 Curry, signed up November 30th, 2020, and was last seen November 30th, 2020.
Yeah,
So, signed up, looked at the team, looked at the situation, and then just didn't sign up again,
yeah,
which is really interesting.
yeah. And they may be talented now. They're led by Greg Branch, the 179 4-star senior, uh, but their entire top 7, 8, their top 8 are seniors.
Yep,
They're going to graduate. Um, and they have some okay underclassmen, like pretty good. I would be happy to have their underclassmen,
for sure.
but they're not going to be ready. The fact that they have no juniors ready to come in, no, not a big sophomore group to take over, they're going to be in trouble soon. So enjoy it while it lasts, Cardinal.
I think, and I think this is a good chance to talk about the fact that you can have president like fluctuations so often that, like, so Stanford has in the past 5 seasons, one, two, three, four different presidents,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so like, yeah, they're a really loaded roster right now, but there's no foresight for the future. There's no planning out 2, 3 seasons ahead, 4 seasons ahead. So next season they're gonna have a huge drop off. They may have a super successful season this year, right? But then they might drop off again next year and the year after that because they don't have that year over year planning.
Mm-hmm.
And so
Yeah.
it's really interesting when you find these teams that are super, like, they're really talented. They might do something and then they just drop off.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we'll have to keep our eye on that for sure.
Yeah. So we mentioned a couple other teams, Fullerton and San Jose State. They both look really strong. San Jose State's president, not the same issue as Stanford. He's been there a long time, about since the game started, it looks like in 2018, and he logged in today. So that was, hey, he's on it.
Yeah.
They've got a really good team. Fullerton, it's a kind of like Stanford, really. Though the president, he signed up on October 30th and hasn't logged in since December 8th. So
Yeah.
it's been a while. I mean, he has a better track record than Stanford's president, but
And Fullerton's like
yeah,
in a pretty decent conference, right?
hmm,
Historically,
yeah,
like a pretty decent team.
hmm.
They have 7 scholarships available for prospects next season,
Oh wow.
and they've offered one person.
Oh, ooh,
So and it's Colby Stark, who's got a ton of teams on him in terms of competition.
mm-hmm,
So, if somebody, like, if this guy doesn't log in or somebody doesn't get to take over the school, they might be talking, they might be in the same situation that we were just talking about with Stanford,
right,
where
right,
they
yeah.
drop off because there's not that year over year planning.
Yeah, yeah. Colby Stark, you mentioned him. He is the top ranked guy in California. Oh, he's the top JUCO
Yeah, he's
guy
really
in the whole
talented.
nation. He's really talented. I remember a couple years ago when he was a high school player and he didn't commit, and left a lot of teams out in the cold, really. But yeah, it looks like some of them are back on him and hoping to get him for a couple years at least.
Yeah,
But yeah, Fullerton may not be the one of them. Or yeah, to get them, because if they haven't logged in, they haven't been putting the points in.
yeah. So
All right.
let's transition a little bit,
Yeah, let's transition.
out of California. We're gonna talk about. I'm gonna mention
Yeah, that's a bad
Misericordia.
state. Mm-hmm.
Misericordia. Um,
Misericordia.
so speaking
Where's
of,
that?
yeah, right. So speaking of schools that you've probably never heard of, number 12, they're 12th, right? I think they're the 12th ranked team in the game. Yeah, no, the 12th ranked team in the game, Misericordia University. I gotta look it up. Where are they even at? Isn't it Pennsylvania?
I think it's Pennsylvania. Yeah.
Yeah. Dallas, Pennsylvania.
I didn't even know there was a
S-
Dallas,
I,
Pennsylvania.
no clue. No
Yeah.
clue whatsoever. It's a private Catholic liberal arts university in Dallas, Pennsylvania.
Mm-hmm.
If a private Catholic liberal arts university can be top 12 in this game, anybody can.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay, anybody can. But I mean,
Yeah.
Misericordia has been one of the most consistent teams in the game for a while, right? Like a really really good team. They've had the same president since the start of the game. Cladu, I don't Cladu. I'm not sure how you pronounce that, but
Yeah, I'm not
and
sure.
they've only had 3 head coaches ever. So I mean, we talk about Stanford and Fullerton not being models of consistency. We jump to Misericordia, who is a model of consistency, right? And so just to speak about their history real quick, they've won the national tourney one time back in 2010. They've had a Final Four, a couple Elite Eights, but it's been a few seasons for them since they've really made any noise.
Mm.
Uh, 23 and 19, 21, 20, 23 and 18, but off to a 4-0 start this year. So, you know, we'll see what happens with them. But they're a pretty loaded roster, if I remember correctly. Yeah. So redshirt senior, 182 SI, small forward, Carl Gavin. I mean, 182 SI, 13 pot, 172 SI shooting guard Neil Preston. So it looks like they're also, well, not too top heavy. So they're graduating 3 guys this year,
Hmm.
4 guys this year, but 3 guys on scholarship. So they're 2 best players and their 4th best player in terms of SI. But then they have 3 really talented juniors, a really talented redshirt freshman, Rodney Jordan. So he's a 131 SI, 13 pot 4-star. we'll have to talk, and we'll talk a little bit about like redshirting and recruiting later, just as a discussion. But so
Hmm.
redshirt freshman there, so they got some really good young talent. So this is a team that this season might have a lot of success, and then really look to jump off next season with some of their young talent.
Hmm.
So
Yeah. Yeah, it sounds like it.
we'll
So
have to see.
they might return back to those glory days soon,
Yeah,
huh?
yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. I mean, like again, like we said, the number 12th ranked team in the country.
Well,
They
yeah, I
get
mean, they're already very good.
Yeah, exactly. They get a 104 to 80 win and they drop 2 spots. Such
Wow.
is Hardwood. Such is
Such
Hardwood,
as hardwood. Yeah, like
right?
you said earlier, the rankings fluctuate so much.
I mean,
Um,
Kansas State got a W and dropped 7 spots.
yeah.
So,
Yeah, right. Um, so yeah, a couple other teams to highlight. We'll just briefly brush over. You got Sacred Heart, who is, what are they ranked, Rob? I'm not on the rankings. I'm on the
Sacred
TPI
Heart is
rankings.
14th.
14th of okay, and but they're sixth in TPI. So they're pretty good. Um, they're led by a 184 four-star shooting guard, DeMarcus Samuels, who looks like he can really shoot from outside very well. Um, they don't have a ton of size, but it's still pretty good. But really, their president Fury is probably the most helpful person in the Discord and forums that I have seen, and so I just wanted to highlight that because he's been so helpful, not only me but a ton of other people in on this universe, and so
Truth.
he's helpful because he knows a lot, and it's clear with this team that he knows what he's doing,
Yeah.
really. So listen to him when he gives you advice.
Yeah. Shout out.
uh,
Shout out.
the other team I wanted to highlight was defending national champion Indiana University of Purdue Indianapolis, IUPUI.
The Jaguars.
The Jaguars, yeah.
Jaguars.
And that's particularly noteworthy because, I mean, something's in the water in Indiana, Rob,
Tell me what is
right?
it?
I don't know, but the last three national champions have been from the state of Indiana.
I mean,
That's
is
weird.
there some biotech company leaking steroids in the tap water or something? What's going on here? I'm so
Maybe
confused.
we'll have to look. We'll have to look
Yeah.
into it. Not only that, national champion 3 straight years, maybe that's still a fluke. But both Final Fours from the past 2 years, maybe 3 years, have had multiple teams from Indiana as well. So it's not just one team; it's multiple teams. There was one year they had 3 teams. Last year they had 2 teams. So it's not just one team. And one thing I've noticed from when I first started is that Indiana is is surprisingly talented in these players, these high school players that come up.
Are you talking about the prospects?
Yeah, the
Yeah.
recruits. Yeah,
Yeah, recruiting.
you know, and not that I don't have any teams near Indiana, even in the region, so I don't really recruit there. But I remember seeing some and always noticing some guys, and so I think that's part of it. It's underrated, but it's talented, and I think
Yeah.
that's a big thing
But
for
like you
these teams.
said, 3 different teams from Indiana winning a natty. I mean, that's 3 different really good teams competing for the top recruits in state.
Right.
It's
Yeah.
challenging for sure.
Right. And maybe that is the coaches of the teams, and obviously the presidents are doing great jobs there. Um, so you know something's up. I don't know. It's probably all of it combined though.
Yeah, definitely.
All right.
Definitely.
But let's move on to D2. So we talked a lot about D1. We still got 2 other divisions to hit. So let's hit them.
And a lot of presidents that are actually in those divisions.
Yeah, I mean they make up Division 2 and Division 3 far outnumber Division 1 teams.
Yeah.
So yeah, we want to show them some love too, given our teams are mostly in those those divisions as well.
Yeah. So,
So
let me,
particularly, yeah,
you want to talk about Washington?
yeah, I'll talk about them. They are very strange, right? They have the highest TPI in Division 2 by far, by like 9 points.
They're disgustingly talented.
They're disgustingly talented, Not only that though, it's not only the highest ranked team in Division Two, it's the second highest ranked TPI in the entire universe, including Division One teams, including Division Three teams, second highest. That's really good.
Yeah.
But they got some weaknesses. They definitely have some weaknesses. They've already lost. They lost to UCLA when UCLA was ranked. And I don't think UCLA is ranked anymore.
I don't think so.
But UCLA is a pretty good team. But yeah, Washington should have been better, but they lost.
Yeah.
The big weakness though is that they have a new president, and
Who?
that president hasn't logged in a few days. I don't think.
Yeah. I think what, since like December 13th or something like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. December 22nd. Okay. Well,
Okay.
we'll give
So
him some
he
credit.
logged in pretty recently then, 5 days ago.
5 days ago. It's still 5 days can be a long time
It's a long time in
in this
recruiting,
game. Yeah, it's
in
a
the
long
recruiting
time
world.
in recruiting.
Yeah.
Yeah. But regardless, he's new. He signed up on December 10th. That's pretty new.
Yeah.
The bigger issue is that they haven't had consistent presidents in 4 seasons,
Mm.
3 or 4 seasons, I guess. So yeah, they might be in trouble kind of soon, and they're only in D2. It's not like they've hit the peak with this talented roster. So maybe it's not all about TPI. Maybe it's not all about SI. There's other things involved, right?
Oh yeah. It's like team comp, especially team comp. Like
Yeah.
if you have three guys at the same position that are loaded in talent, maybe your TPI looks skewed, but you know, one of them is a four perimeter defense and he's playing at small forward. It's not.
Mm-hmm.
That's
Yeah.
not. That's not going to get it done against some of the best teams.
Right.
But it's
Right.
still insane to think they have the second highest TPI in the entire Hardwood universe. Like one would hope that they run the table this year, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
like that's a team that probably should be at least a Final Four in terms of just like pure TPI relevance, like a
Yeah.
Final
Just
Four, Elite Eight appearance at minimum.
just in terms of pure talent, you would think so.
Yeah,
But I haven't looked too closely at their roster, so I don't know all the roster composition. I mean, I can take a quick look. I mean, they've got a couple 176 SI big men, 6'7".
yeah,
So I mean, they have the size right there, and their third highest rated guy is their point guard. So it looks like they have a solid mix. Um, they could move some guys around to play different positions, but yeah, I mean, it looks like they should make a deep run, but you kind of need the captain to direct the ship still.
yeah. You,
So
you
we'll
like you
see.
wouldn't be surprised if mid-January or whatever we find, or January 22nd we find out they went bot,
Right.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And maybe that's better for them as a program because maybe the bot scheme's a little
Well,
bit better, right? Than a
exactly. Yeah.
than a non-present owner.
Right. Yeah. Recruiting wise, it looks like they're on some seniors at least, but not doesn't look like they'll win them. So not sure they will be that great in the future. Um, but they have another year maybe because they have a bunch of juniors. But yeah, so
Right.
that's Washington. Um,
So you want to talk about Biola?
yeah, Biola. Where are they at? They're actually a California school,
They are a California school, yeah. To
which
speak
is
about the
interesting.
strong California schools. So
Yeah,
shout out to. Go ahead.
I just wanted to mention a couple of their players. But
Yeah,
you
I
were
just I
sorry.
just want I just want to shout out their president real quick, Eleanor,
Oh, mm-hmm.
because he's been around for going on one, two, three, four, five, the sixth season.
Oh wow.
So yeah, it's always good to see active owners, and I mean his recruiting classes have been pretty decent across the board. So 129, 270, 166, 235, which is not recruiting at D1 level, but like when you're building a team up, those are good recruiting classes. Like you can do something with those if you hit on the right guys.
Yeah, I remember that Biola they I think they promoted right away, but then they got demoted right away.
Yeah.
Um,
So, but the team TPI, so his first season 117, second season 118, that's not going to get it done, right?
no, yeah.
123, 137, last season 145.5.
Wow, so they've
So,
really shot up.
yeah, so you can tell that he's done a good job. I mean, in last season they won the conference.
Mm-hmm.
They won
Yeah,
the
and then they
conference first
promoted.
24 and 6 they promoted. So you can tell he's done a good job recruiting the right guys, building the talent. So shout out to him.
Yeah, shout out to Eleanor. And like I know, and now they're in a good position to promote again, though, obviously, because they have one of the top ranked TPIs in D2. And particularly, they're led by Gene McMillan, their shooting guard, who's now a 181 SI. Wow. Whew.
Tell me all about Gene.
Gene McMillan. So, once upon a time, Dominican University of California Penguins went after this 13 potential. He was like 5'11", 5'10", 5'9". I don't even remember how tall he was in high school. But he had some of the most outstanding growth rates I've ever seen in his skills. He had 16 in his freshman year, 19 in his sophomore year, 12 in his junior year, and then 14 in his senior year. But then he really went nuts with his development.
I mean,
Eleanor played him a lot. Biel played him a lot, but wow.
so this is a guy who also hasn't redshirted. So he's
Yes,
181 as a true senior.
as a true, yeah,
As a true
right.
senior, right? But like year one, his freshman year, he played 31.1 minutes a game. His development was 30. He went from a
30.
102 to 132 SI.
So he was like, he ideally he should have been a bench guy in his freshman year or redshirted even.
Yeah.
But instead, he improves by 30 and immediately becomes an all conference guard the next year.
It's disgusting. But he won
That type of
freshman of the year
caliber.
that year in his freshman year. So
Right,
he was
right.
really good. But I mean, okay,
But
sure. He jumps 30 in his first year, but
he
what happens
jumps
his
30,
sophomore
yeah.
year?
All right. Okay, he should slow down, right? He should slow down, you would think. No.
No, he didn't slow down. He
He
said,
went
all right,
plus
freshman year, I see you plus
32.
30. Let's raise you one and go plus 32.
That's insane. That's
So
wild.
a 3-star recruit who was the number 93 ranked player at his position, right? Jumps 62 in 2 seasons.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes 62 is good for 5 years of a player's
Yeah.
growth,
Yeah.
right? If you redshirt them, 62 is good. 62 over 2 seasons. That's insane.
Yeah. So, when we're talking about these potentials and 13, being better than 10, this is what we mean. This type of growth is exemplary of a 13 potential type of guy.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, we lost out to Biola on him, and he's been playing really well with them. I can say he would not have been on the same plan that for me.
Yeah. And that's another question, right? Is like if Dominican signs him and he doesn't get as many minutes, does he develop as well?
Right? Yeah, I don't know. I mean,
Yeah.
my coaches have been excellent developers, and Biola's coach is not a good developer
No, he's a
actually.
6.
So he's been this player McMillan has been plus 30s with a 6 development coach. Imagine if it was even 10.
And that coach has been
Imagine if
around the entire time.
Yeah.
Wow.
So wow. And then his junior year he rose 16, which is very good. It's no 30s, but it's still very good.
We're happy with 16 from a lot of players. 16 is half
Yeah.
of his previous year growth.
Yeah. So this guy, ideal.
Yeah.
And not yeah. So he's the leader of them. They also have another 13 pot though in Gerardo Reyes, also a true senior, 170, sophomore, 6'3".
Good old Gerardo.
Yeah, and so they're a solid team. 167-point guard. So
Do you remember seeing Gerardo in the
I
recruiting?
do,
You
I
do?
do remember.
I
Yeah,
don't
yeah,
remember him.
yeah. I don't remember exactly where he was. He wasn't highly rated.
Yeah, he's number
I'm wrong.
495 overall. He's a
I mean,
3-star.
he was pretty good. We should have noticed him, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, his first season plus 21, his second season plus 19.
I think I was scared off by his high school development. I didn't think it was going to be that good.
Yeah.
17, 14, 11, 11.
It's
Yeah,
so
the
weird.
latter half is not great, but it's yeah, he's 21, 19 is really good.
Somebody needs to investigate that program. I smell something
Yeah,
fishy.
yeah, with a 6 developer, that's kind of fishy.
I
I
smell
agree.
something fishy.
No, I'll shout out to Eleanor. Really, he's done a great job with that program.
Yeah. Yeah. Props
Um,
out to him for sure.
all right, moving on to Another D2 school I wanted to quickly highlight, Wisconsin. We typically think of Wisconsin being a big name
Powerhouse.
program. Yeah,
Yeah.
but they're Division two. But this year they look really good. They have five seniors, um, led by Mondragon, the point guard, and Hurd, the small forward. Yeah, they look really good. So it'll be interesting to see what noise they make.
Yeah. They hit on the number 89 recruiting class last year, so they got some good guys.
Oh wow.
It looks like they're on three different guys for this season: 4-star, 3-star, 3-star, but 13, 12, 13 pot. So
Hmm.
they're, all three of them out of state. So they're reaching. They're competing.
Right.
Out
Yeah.
of
So
state
they're
guys.
Vaughn, their president Vaughn 86 is he's starting to really ramp up that program, which is good to see. I mean, it's weird to see Wisconsin not in D1, not a
It's
highly ranked
really
team.
weird to see that. Yeah.
Yeah, so
It's really
it's
weird to
good.
see like your big name programs and then they're like bottom of D3 or like bottom of D2 or something. You,
Right,
you just
yeah.
don't expect it. Like
Yeah.
sometimes you look at the schedule and you see teams that are like Florida, for example, and you're like, oh man, it's gonna be a tough game. And then you realize that like in the Hardwood universe, they've had some drop off.
Yeah, it doesn't matter, who they are
Yeah.
in real life. So, yeah, I want to quickly highlight some tough conferences in each of these lower divisions because a lot of the teams we talked about some standout teams, but a lot of the teams are bunched together, so it's not as easy to pick out like who's going to be really really good. But conferences you can kind of tell. So talk about one of those.
You want to talk
I
about
think you're in a
V3?
couple, right?
Yeah. Let's talk about V3. So
Yeah, let's talk
V3
about V
has,
three.
yeah, in
Yeah.
terms of TPI, 9 teams in the top 67 in D2. 9 teams in the top 67, right?
That
So that's
might have changed actually, because I did that yesterday. That
Oh,
might
you
have
did that
changed.
yesterday. It might have changed,
Yeah,
but either way, I mean, it's a really good conference, right?
yeah,
It just so
yeah.
happens my team is in that conference, Santa Clara. But
Not only that, my one of my teams is
oh
in.
yeah,
But
your team's Dominican, yeah. So there's like some really talented teams here. Arkansas State's pretty talented. I know my team, North Georgia, who also promoted with me last year. Um, MSU Moorhead, we had some pretty good battles last season. I know they're really talented. So V3 is a strong conference. So
yeah, I mean, 64 teams make the tournament, and to have nine in the top 65, so just one team outside of that, or barely outside, which is ironically my team. Um, that says a lot. Over half the conference should be competitive. Like
yeah,
that's gonna be tough.
yeah,
Versus other conferences. Maybe one team is in the top
and three of those teams are in the top
50.
18.
Yeah,
Yeah, shout
yeah,
out to Slippery Rock. I forgot to mention Slippery Rock. Three of those teams are in the top 18, and it
right,
looks like five are in the top 26, with
right.
Arkansas
Versus
State sneaking in there.
you look at some other conferences, V15, LL 515. They have one team at 24, and then the second team is at 72.
Yeah,
Like that's a big difference.
that's a really big drop off. Yeah,
I mean, I'm sure that conference is going to be tough too, but I don't know if it's the same quality.
yeah. It looks like they might be a little bit top heavy with some decent teams, but then there's a really big drop off. I know my team,
Yeah.
Santa Clara, played one of their teams shorter today and won by
Oh yeah.
28.
Oh wow.
Yeah, won by 28. Um, so a little bit difference in terms of the strength of conferences there for sure.
Yeah, yeah. Um, I wanted to mention another conference, LL 5.8. So that is the conference of Washington
Washington
and
and
in
Wisconsin.
Wisconsin.
So two of the teams that we previewed. Yeah.
That's one in number one and number eight, and then they have San Diego.
At 13.
Yeah, Jacksonville at 15. So that's four in the top 15.
Four.
Top
Yeah.
wise, that's probably better than the one we just talked about, V3.
I think so, especially when it's buoyed by Washington like that. Because
Yeah.
and then there's a little bit of drop off there, right? I don't find another team until 67 with
Hmm.
McMurray.
Yeah.
So there's a good example of four teams that are going to be fighting for 3 promotion spots.
Right. Yeah, that'll be a really interesting battle for sure.
Yeah, and I think
Um,
any one of those four teams that doesn't get promoted would be really disappointed in their season.
Right. Yeah, that was Washington last year. I remember.
Yeah, exactly.
Um, yeah, and then what about the another conference that looks really strong? What do you think?
Let's see. Which ones did we talk about? Did we talk about V6 yet?
We have not, no.
Yeah, so V6 looks pretty good. Um, ironically, what do you know? My other
I mean,
team's
I
V6.
I'm going by I'm going by the numbers, not because
Yeah,
we have teams in there or
I
you have
know,
a team in there.
yeah. So V6, Eckerd, 143.3 TPI. They're at 14th right now. My second team, Oswego, 140.8 TPI. They're at 19. Um, and then another team at 27. So three of the top 27. So not as strong as the other ones we talked about. Another team at 35. But definitely some talented teams there for
I mean, they're
sure.
really deep, right? I mean, that's five
Yeah,
in the top 50, and
yeah,
then a six at 62.
yeah,
Like that is strong. I mean, I checked, like that's up there, and it's not maybe not as good as V3 or V8,
yeah,
but like it's good.
yeah.
It's better than a bunch of other ones,
It's a lot of good teams, yeah, for sure. Um,
right?
so we're gonna have our work cut out for us in that conference as well.
Yeah, but you look like you're in a good spot, so
Hopefully,
hopefully.
we'll see.
Um, and then we can move on to D3, I think, and
Yeah,
there's not much to talk about really. There's a few things, but there's only in terms of teams to watch out for. There's really only one,
yeah,
and that's Wyoming,
yeah. Currently
the
sitting at a
Wyoming
151.4
Cowboys.
TPI.
Yeah,
151.4 is good.
the only team above 150.
Yeah.
I mean 140 is good, but like
For
150,
for
wow.
for reference, there are four other teams in D3 that have a 140 plus TPI,
Hmm.
right? So St. Edwards, Stephen F. Austin, UC Irvine, UNC Wilmington. They're 140 to 145.9. So Wyoming has like a roughly six TPI advantage, right? 6 point
Yeah,
TPI advantage from the second overall team, and
yeah,
there's only four other teams in 140. So
yeah,
they're clearing away the best team in that conference or in that
yeah.
division, I should say.
They should be, right? Yeah.
Yeah,
What I like is that their president is named Wyoming.
it's beautiful, right? He knows
That's it's
exactly what he
great.
wants in life.
Yeah, yeah, and he logged in today, so good, good. We like
Shout
active
out to
owners.
Wyoming.
Yeah,
He's been
both
around for a
the
while too.
president.
He's been around
Yeah,
since the
longer than
2010
us.
season.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So,
Um, but that's really the only team I wanted to highlight. I mean, there's good teams
well,
in
wait.
D3, no
Can we
doubt.
can we mention his coach real quick?
Sure. Yeah. Oh, I didn't look at their coach.
So, head coach of Wyoming Cowboys, Dirk Seaman.
Oh my goodness,
Dirk Seaman. Number one, his recruiting is a 20.
that's
He's
the highest it can
a
be.
20. That's the highest it can possibly be. But
Yeah.
he also has a comment getting to the age where his ability to coach and recruit may begin to decline
Mm.
because he's 63 years old,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
right? So, like, here's a really, really talented recruiting coach in Dirk Seaman. I love the fact his name's Dirk Seaman.
I
Um,
know. Yeah.
and he might sort of have some drop off in terms of that recruiting. And I think it like in terms of age, those skills decline pretty quickly, right?
Yeah, they can. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, there's I've seen some examples where they don't really yet, but they definitely can.
Yeah, I don't know if there's like a certain age cutoff, like maybe it's 65 where like you see a drastic nosedive, or maybe if it has to do with like total experience or something. But
I
um,
think it might be different for everybody too.
yeah,
Their coaches are kind of random like players.
yeah,
But they have a really good assistant, Darnell Whitaker. He's 30 years old. He's got 11 in play. He's already shown growth in development and recruiting, and he seems to be able to develop players and has a good rapport with prospects and recruits, and that's as good
there's
as it gets right now.
there's also Dan Donaldson. He's 40, but he's an 11 in
Oh,
offense,
tactically, he's
defense,
great.
and player dev, right?
Yeah,
So
so he's good.
he's already got three categories that have upgraded to 11. Rep says he seems to be able to develop players. He has a poor report with prospects and recruits. So he may not be the strongest recruiter, but when you have a head coach who's a 20 in recruiting, you probably don't need that, right? You want assistants that are
Right,
going to round out your staff.
right. Yeah, yeah. Tactically, he looks really good for sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, okay. So strong conferences, yeah, strong conferences to go over. Um, there's Wyoming's conference. Any conference with Wyoming is going to be pretty good.
Yeah. I mean, they're they're going to lead the way. They're loaded,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Let's see. Let's look at some of the other conferences here. So maybe VI 16.
yeah. VI 16 does look pretty good. Actually, hold on. I wanted to highlight some other teams in Wyoming's conference, though,
Oh yeah, sure, go
because
for
I
it.
hadn't pulled that up until now. So Vermont and Washington State and Southern New Hampshire, they're all top 40 schools in terms of TPI, and so that's really strong in Division three, where there's 32 conferences. So to
Yeah,
have four in the top 40, that's stronger. You know, in Division two, there's only 16 conferences, so you want like six strong teams,
yeah.
but to have four in D3 where there's double the amount of conferences, double the amount of teams, and that's technically even better
You'd
than.
expect like a pretty good talent distribution in terms of D3. And
Hmm.
so to have, so if you're top or heavy, if you're more top heavy in your conference in D3, it's significant of the fact that like, there's some really good teams there.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, what about VI16 though?
So VI 16 led by Berea College at number 7. It looks like they've got the number 19th team, the number 22nd, number 24. So four in the top 24. Again, that just
Hmm.
speaks to talent depth right there.
Yeah,
Um,
and some pretty active owners even beyond that. UC San Diego has an active owner.
yeah, which we love to
Um,
see. We love
yeah,
active owners.
yeah. I know Carnegie Mellon is very active.
Yep.
So hopefully they can overperform, move up, and take over some of those bot teams because I know
Yeah,
some of them aren't.
that's what I was going to highlight is they have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 of their 16 teams are bot teams.
Oh wow!
11
In
of their
case you couldn't
16.
tell, we don't really like bots.
No, we don't like bots. We want users, right? The more people we can get to play in each conference, no matter what conference it is, the more competitive it's going to be, just the better, right?
Yeah,
And like
yeah,
it's really disappointing to see this where it's 11 out of 16 teams are bots, right? You'd at least
yeah,
hope for an even split,
yeah,
right? And I get that a lot of these teams maybe not aren't like super appealing to people, but like there's got to be an alumni from Sonoma State out there that wants to take over, right? The
yeah. I mean,
Seawolves.
I know a person who went to Sonoma State. I've thought about getting him into this game, but he's not someone I typically think of like who would be super into this. But his love for Sonoma State is very big. Maybe he knows someone who could be into this type of thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So strong conference, but again, a lot of bots.
Yeah, but any team can be good,
Yeah.
like we've highlighted.
Yeah.
So another conference that we want to highlight is our old stomping grounds in D3, our New York teams, VI11. They
VI
look
11.
pretty good.
Yeah.
Again,
Yeah.
64 teams make the tournament, and they have one, two, three, four, five, six teams in the top 64. Wow.
With Stephen F. Austin being the number 3 ranked team in terms of total
Hmm.
TPI, 142.8.
I
Again,
remember Stephen F. Austin.
there are 5 teams in D3 that have 140 or higher TPI, right? So
And
to
this
be number
is one
3,
of them.
that's one of them. Yeah, exactly.
I
Mount
remember
Mary
Stephen F. Austin.
15. I remember Stephen F. Austin very clearly.
We kicked them down
Can we talk about
to D3.
okay, University of Maine at Presque Isle?
Oh yeah.
They're
Oh
sitting
yeah.
at 30th in total TPI.
Umpy.
Yeah, I mean that's a team that we like laughed at historically.
Well, when we first joined, they were not a good team. They were kind of a bit of a joke.
We expected to like run over them basically.
Yeah. But
Right.
now,
You have
well, I
talent
mean,
turnover.
a year later, they were really good against Oswego and
The
everyone
Oswego year.
else.
Yeah.
But then they fell back down, partially thanks to me.
That was
But
the year
now
they
they're looking
promoted. They
good.
finished second.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
But now they look really good again. Um, yeah, they're led by a couple 6'7" guys. One at point guard though.
A 6'7" point guard. You love to see it.
Yeah,
Canadian.
yeah,
Wow,
yeah.
155 SI, 10 pot 2-star.
Right. Yeah, it's interesting.
That is really interesting. Some good
Hmm.
growth there. Maybe just the fact that he's been around for 5 years, but I mean, that's you build programs any which way you build programs.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I mean, their top 4 players are 3-star, 2-star, 2-star, 3-star. So
Wow.
again,
Yeah.
like to be a good team, you don't need to recruit 4s and 5-stars. There's not enough to go around.
Absolutely.
There's not
Yeah.
enough to go
Yeah.
around.
Yeah. You don't need fours and fives absolutely all across your roster. It's nice to have them. They're good, no doubt.
Yeah, yeah.
But
They're gonna
there's good
start.
players
They're gonna
elsewhere.
start higher in SI, but you can get comparable growth over seasons. Like I told you that they have two stars and 2 3 stars in their top four,
Hmm.
but 3 out of those four are 12 pots, right? 12
Yeah,
potentials,
right. Which is a good number to target.
right? And then the other one that's a 10 potential has reached 155.
Oh wow. Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I've ever heard of a 10 potential reaching that.
That's really high, right? That's you wouldn't expect that from,
Either
especially.
that's like at the ceiling or it's even above, it's past, I
Yeah,
think.
yeah, exactly. So,
Wow.
I mean, that's a team that's on the turnaround for sure.
All right, let's talk about the really juicy story though of the week, I think,
Oh
or
yeah.
the preseason. So, you know, Division One. Back to Division One a little bit. Not only Division One, the top conference in Division One.
One of the recent national championship winners, right?
Yeah, he's three-time league champion. Or
Three time.
that team is three-time league champion. If you don't know who we're talking about the Butler Bulldogs. Not that they're Division Three. No, they're still in the top conference. But what happened to them?
I mean, their president decided that he was going to leave the Butler Bulldogs, one of the best teams in the game, with one of the strongest histories in the game,
One
for
of the best
one
coaches.
of the best coaches, just all around, just one of the best teams that you're ever going to find, one of the best programs, for University of Puerto Rico, Rio Pedras.
Oh my gosh.
I
I
mean,
still can't get over that.
I can't either because like, so so maybe like he was tired of being really really good and wanted a new
I guess.
challenge
Yeah. Yeah, yeah.
because this guy's been around since 2018, so basically the start of the game. Um, and he got his challenge. I mean, this is a program that like all time has 3 total tourney wins, and their last tourney win was in 2007.
Oh wow, that's a long time.
So
We're in the 2016
2017,
2017 season for
yeah.
reference.
So
So
10 seasons,
10 years. Wow.
yeah.
10
So
seasons, yeah.
maybe he wanted a challenge. I mean, he got it. If that's what he wanted, he got it,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
right? With the UPR Rio Pedras Roosters,
The Rooster.
the Roosters.
But one thing's for certain. This owner, this president, Nobody Jones, he knows what he's doing.
Oh, I don't doubt that at all. Like
Yeah.
if in like 2 seasons they're in D2, I'd be like, well, I mean, sure, it's expected.
Yeah. Yeah, so it'll be interesting to see where that team goes, how Nobody Jones, take what direction that he takes them in. It's going to be challenged because Puerto Rico, it doesn't really have like the same recruiting advantages that California or even like a smaller state
Yeah,
does.
it's a shallow
It's
pool,
pretty tough. Yeah, it's shallow.
and there's 3 programs there.
Right, and one of them is pretty good.
Yeah, there's UP,
My
yeah,
guess.
UPR Mayaguez. He's Division 1, or should we say
Yeah, they're
she,
very good.
President Jennifer Lopez.
Jennifer
Um,
Lopez.
Jennifer Lopez. But so there's 3 schools there competing, all with owners for the shallow prospect pool that is Puerto Rico.
And they all know what they're doing.
Yeah,
So that's tough.
dude, those are gonna be some fun battles.
Yeah.
Like those are gonna be some fun battles for sure.
Right. Yeah. So
So
I mean,
just for reference, real quick,
mhm.
and let me see. Let me do uncommitted prospects as well. This season, in terms of their recruiting this season, there's 1 4-star, right? So he's a small forward, Ruben Cabrera. He's a 117 SI, 12 pot 4-star. Then there's 1 3-star who's a 6'9 center, 11 pot 3-star,
Oh,
and
he
then
must be popular.
2 and 1 stars.
That's it. Those are
That's
the
it.
only prospects.
That's it.
Oh my gosh.
So yeah, and that 6'9 center has a team that's out of region on in Western New England, and that's it. So like he can never be a good rebounder though. Will always be a poor defender. So maybe that's why. But I mean,
Right. Yeah. I mean, you have to even consider, yeah, like maybe they're not good prospects. They also
yeah,
need to be good.
exactly. So when you have a very shallow recruiting pool, and you know the like a shallow recruiting pool, 3 teams going for guys, and like a total of 11 players to choose from. I mean, Nobody Jones signed up for a challenge, and I'm really excited to see what happens because those are the type of projects we like to take. go from the bottom to the top. So we'll see. I mean, it's pretty bold. He didn't leave for a good D2 team or anything like that. He left for a straight up project.
Right. Yeah.
So
Yeah. So I mean, like you said, some domestic teams are going to come into Puerto Rico to recruit. These Puerto Rican teams have to go out of the U.S., which is harder for them.
it takes much more
I
recruiting
think.
points.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like if you miss on one guy and you spend a bunch of points, that hurts, right? It's going to hurt your whole recruiting plan. So only hits, no misses in this case. It's just how it's going to have to be.
Yeah. Yeah. And we'll talk about more about like recruiting and the different intricacies another time. But
Yeah.
yeah, okay. So now on to some news of the week. I know we're running a little long.
Yeah. Longer than we expected, huh? Wow, we're
Yeah.
already at like an hour and 20 minutes.
Yeah, we spent a bit of the time in the intro. That's okay.
This just goes to show how much we love Hardwood.
It really does.
It really
I mean,
does.
we do this normally.
Yeah, right, exactly. So I want to talk about the puzzling coaching move of the week. Okay.
Okay,
So,
yeah. So why is it puzzling though in the
okay.
first place?
So Providence Friars. First of all, I need to shout out the president. If you don't like this, don't have puzzling coaching moves. But President E. Lambo. So he fired a 37-year-old assistant that has tens across the board and no reputation. So you'd think, okay, like maybe he found somebody who's better, right? Like tens across the board, shows no growth. There's no reputation.
We just don't
there.
know anything about him yet.
You know nothing yet.
Yeah.
But he hired a 26-year-old assistant that has 2 categories that have 9 ratings.
Ooh.
Okay. And not to mention the fact that they're in player development and game tactics.
Yeah.
And it's like if that assistant, Ricky Van, had a reputation that said like, oh, really good recruiter, knows offense or something, then you'd be like, okay, he's just sacrificing 2 categories for other categories he wants. But the reputation is none.
Yeah.
So he fired a coach with no reputation that had better skills across the board for a coach that has no reputation, has worse skills across the board. And maybe he's thinking because one's 37 and one's 26 that age will play a factor, but we have no evidence to support that.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, yeah, like you said, there's at least the age difference of hiring the younger guys. So you could that owner, that president, Providence, they'll have the coach for longer theoretically, but it may not be
theoretically a better chance to develop over time, right?
Yeah, but it may not be a good coach still.
True.
Van may not be as good of a coach. We just know nothing about the 37-year-old. He could have been bad. He could have been really bad. We don't know. He could have been really good.
I am going to keep an eye on him. Mm-hmm. And if he develops positively, come on down to Santa Clara.
Hey.
I mean, we'll save you from the poorly run program that is Providence Friars.
Well, he's gone now. I mean,
yeah. I mean, I'm sorry. There, at least. I'm sorry to shout you out, but this is puzzling.
Yeah, I agree. A Lambo, not a good decision.
Not a good decision, bud.
At least it's questionable, puzzling. As we said, that's the segment. Puzzling.
That's the segment.
Coaching decision of the week.
Yep, and we'll hope that there's a nice puzzling coaching decision of the week every week. But if not, we'll play around segments.
Well, eventually there won't be because assistants can only be hired or fired in the first few days. Yeah. But there's always head coach moves.
Yeah, definitely.
And given this is going to be weekly, so we'll have a few days to build up. But bigger scope than that is that assistants got reputations. For the entirety of last season, when they were implemented, there were no reputations. And that was really frustrating for not just me, but a lot of the community.
That was a big topic on the forums and the Discord.
Yeah.
Right? Because we advocate for getting assistant coaches. We get assistant
happens.
coaches.
And props to the administrator for putting them in, because that was awesome.
Yeah, no, I mean, dude, okay. Admin Steve, you do a great job. We love the game. Mm-hmm. We're gushing about the game. When we say we're frustrated by something, please don't take any offense to it.
Right. Yeah. But we were really frustrated with that, and we were like hoping that the season flip would reveal a lot of the reputations, and nothing.
Yeah.
Nothing on the flip.
And trying to like reason out why guys might get reputations before others, because there's some guys that have reputations, there's some assistants that have nothing. I've tried to think about like maybe it's in terms of experience, right? Like the more experience that you get, the more your reputation starts to pop up. But that doesn't really hold true for all guys, right?
Right.
Like one of
Right.
my assistants, Corey Warner for Santa Clara, has in total been assistant coach for 34 games, and he's already got 2 comments,
That's
right?
less than a full season. Yeah.
That's yeah, exactly. But then if you pop over to my other team who's had like a full season and then plus some conference games and stuff like that. So if you look at Oswego, um, I've gotten no developments across the board on all 3 of those assistants in terms of reputation, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's been what 49 games now.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah. So like I don't yet know how to reason with assistant coaches in terms of like I should expect this reputation here, or like does the head coaching position in terms of their skills reflect on the assistants, right? Like we haven't been able to mesh that out yet.
And not only that, like I said, there's a time limit on when you can hire and fire assistants. So the fact that you haven't seen reputations develop at all for some of your assistants, you don't you don't know when they will. If I mean they will, obviously, I guess eventually, but you don't know when they will. And then when they do, it might be too late to really make a change until the next time,
Yeah.
which it's just not ideal.
Yeah.
And so, same thing kind of happened on a smaller scale for this. So, reputations finally did start to show up on Thursday, this past Thursday, on the first development.
Yeah.
But, a few days already passed in the season, a few crucial days where we could have made those decisions to hire and fire assistants.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so, yeah, it wasn't, it could have been rolled out a bit better. So
At
hopefully
least
we
at
see
least so
some
we
more
know
reputations.
expectations and like what the growth's going to be and sort of like what to look out for, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Hey Andrew, want to talk about recruiting?
Yeah, I mean, they have started to come in. Some high schoolers, internationals, um, no JUCOs yet. They've started to commit to the teams. And has there been anyone interesting in your book, Rob?
Yeah, I mean, um, was it today or yesterday? I think it was yesterday, right? That Tampa got
Yesterday.
yeah. So the first 5-star of the season signed yesterday. His name is Aaron Ritchie. He's a 128 SI, 13 pot 5-star from North Carolina, and he signed with Tampa. Now, you might be thinking,
The
maybe
number
Tampa was
seven
just
pros
yeah,
number
number
seven
7
prospect
overall. Yeah,
in the nation.
number one
Yeah.
shooting guard in the
Oh
nation,
wow.
right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Has a pretty decent eval. Could be a good shooter. Could be a long range shooter. Can be a smart player. Good all around defensive player. Below average ball handler. Will be very quick. Good all around player. So not exactly like an ideal eval, but I mean he's still a 5-star 13 pot, so he should be pretty good. But the reason why we want to bring him up is because he signs with Tampa, right?
Mm-hmm.
So an
Yeah.
out of I don't know if that's out of region, North Carolina, Tampa. I would
That
assume so.
is
Yeah.
that is the same region.
Okay, same region. So an in region but out of state prospect for Tampa. But Tampa has a president, Luna Mayer, who signed up November 27th
Mm-hmm.
and was last seen November 27th.
Oh my goodness. He's about to lose it like in 5 days.
Well, not even only that, but the fact that a 5-star player signed with a non-existent president on a team,
Mm-hmm.
right? And they're D1. Like, don't get me wrong, they're D1. They're II.2. I don't know how we're going to talk about those, but whatever. So they're a good squad, but the president just hasn't been around, right? And
Right.
so, like, how many points were on this prospect prior to that president leaving, or I don't really know what the situation was with that guy there. We didn't really check out the recruiting competition that was on him
Yeah, I don't
prior
remember.
to prior to him committing. It's just one of those things where we saw him commit, wanted to look at the team, and then we are like, oh, whoa, okay, interesting.
Right. Yeah, I don't remember if he like wanted to commit early or anything or
Yeah,
the competition. But it's still surprising, like you said, because no matter what, it's a 5-star. It takes points to put in, but this president only logged in once, and either they put the points in on them that much on that one day, or someone did it beforehand.
but this was also prior to the season flip, right?
Um, yeah, yeah. So this
So
player did not just show up this
yeah,
at the flip. Yeah.
but not only that, but that means that from so prior to the season flip, so a whole new season, everything. for 30 actual days. Presumably, no recruiting points have been spent on him from
Hmm.
Tampa because the president hasn't logged in. And
Right.
so it's like, did other teams just not fight to catch up? Did other teams quit because Tampa was so far ahead? Um, I don't know the situation there, but it's just
Right.
pretty interesting to think about.
Right. We don't know how early Tampa got on them because they did have a president who was somewhat active since 2014.
Yeah,
So maybe they put the points in, that put that work in early on, and it just paid off.
it's
Didn't
yeah,
need
it's
much
entirely
else.
possible. It's entirely possible.
But because they did promote 2 times in a row, 2 seasons in a row, like that'll help. Um, so I'm not sure. It is interesting. It's probably really frustrating for all those teams in the Southeast region
Yeah,
who might have been fighting on him, because yeah, 5 star is a 5 star. 128 SI is a 128 SI. We all would like that on our roster coming in as
coming
a
in. Oh
freshman.
yeah, oh yeah. I mean, presumably he's going to be 130 plus by the end of the season if he hits on.
Right.
I mean, hopefully, you think a 5 star is going to recruit a little or going to develop a little bit his senior year, but he's going to be really talented coming in regardless, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So that was interesting.
Yeah.
All right.
Um,
So we're gonna try out some segment ideas. We've got a couple. We didn't come into this just completely blind. We prepped, didn't we?
yeah, we prepped. Yeah. So the first segment we want to do is we want to it's a topic of discussion on the forums, on the Discord. We want to call out some tanking teams, right? And so we're going to
Yeah.
highlight maybe one team a week that tanks a lot, or is in the process of tanking, and sort of talk about their situation. So you
Yeah.
want to go ahead for this week?
Yeah. So this team, I've been in a conference with them before. Um,
Yeah, we both have.
yeah, we both have. So that's why they are particularly. Um, that's why we know them. Otherwise, I probably wouldn't pay them much attention.
Yeah.
But this is not a bot. We've been talking about these bots just killing the teams. This isn't even an absentee owner. This is a person who's logged in almost every day, from what I can tell. They
Since
last logged in
March.
yesterday, since March 21st. That's before we joined by like 2 months.
Yeah.
But all right, I'll just say who it is. Pittsburgh Johnstown. What are you doing?
What are you
What
doing,
are you doing?
Pittsburgh? Come on.
Come on. You have no scholarship players, no players on scholarship on
Not
your
a single
roster.
player on scholarship?
Not a single player on scholarship. Not only that, not just this year, last year too.
And so you
Oh,
might
well, they had
think,
one. They had one on scholarship last year. I'm sorry. I'm sorry,
okay,
Louis Markham. You were on scholarship.
and you might think that, okay, well, they're going to use the tanking strategy that teams use and be after a bunch of 5s and 4 stars this season. But
Yeah,
you head
you'd
over to the
think so.
recruiting page and you
You
see
head over.
nothing.
Nothing. Not even on freshmen
No
or
interest
sophomores.
levels, like no scholarship offers that we can tell. Nothing.
They were not a bad team when we first joined, remember? They
Yeah.
were kind of like, I mean, not good, but like not the worst.
Like,
They were pretty bad, actually.
yeah, they were pretty bad. They had that one season where they were decent, and I think they upset me that season.
Hmm.
But yeah,
But then you look at their recruiting. I'm honestly curious. Do you Scorpion?
Scorpion, do you know
Scorpion?
how to play the game?
Do you not know where the recruiting button is? Do you
Like,
not know how to search for prospects?
okay, so it's just so puzzling. In the 5 seasons that so far that Scorpion's been president, they have their first season recruiting rank was 647. Presumably that was computer generated before he joined. And
Hmm.
then NA, 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 NA. He hasn't signed any prospects in 4 years or 4 seasons for this team.
That I'm speechless.
What's your end goal? Like, dude, Scorpion, if you hear this and you're like, you have some like rhyme to your, or some reason like what's going on here,
Please
reach
tell
out to
us.
us, man, because
Please.
we don't want to flame you for no reason here. But like,
Right, yeah.
the TPI when you took over was 131.3, then it went to 116, 118, 113, and then last season was 103. Like,
You're an active owner. We like that, but
we love that.
we want you to do well. You're our former conference mate. We want you to do well,
Your
man.
your current TPI is 90.9.
That's wow.
Like, I wonder
Wow.
if he's just trying to build the worst team in the game and then start from there.
Well, he's already close enough. I
Yeah,
think he's good to go.
because something is confusing here. Like we genuinely don't get it. And it's like we said, you log in all the time.
Yeah,
You are
you
very
gain like,
last in D3 in TPI.
mm-hmm. Yeah.
Very last. Dude, tell us what you're doing.
Yeah, it's shocking, or it is very
Shocking.
confusing.
Yeah. We just don't get it, man.
Man,
Like
yeah. So, that's the bot, or that's the
tanking
tanking
team of the
team of
week.
this week. Trust me, there are others, and we're
We're
gonna
gonna
find
highlight
you.
one team each week. Yeah.
We do
So if
not
you're
like
tanking, we're
tankers
gonna
here.
shout you out.
And
No.
Pittsburgh, Johnstown, not even like a malevolent, like bad tanking team. They just aren't recruiting. We're just confused.
Puzzled.
You know, but there are other teams that tank and do it. I don't know about maliciously, but they do it wrong. It's just the wrong thing.
Or they do it intentionally, is what you're trying to say.
I mean, it looks like it's intentional for Pittsburgh Johnstown,
This is yeah, fair. That's a fair point. But I think
but
what you're trying
but
to
they
do is
do
lead
it.
us. Go ahead.
But these other teams do it because they, I don't know how to put it. They only want to get the 5 and 4 stars.
Well, they're utilizing what's essentially a loophole in the game, right?
Right.
So let's just get to the theoretical discussion. Like, should tanking be
Yeah, yeah.
allowed? Right? Should
Yeah, should
tanking even be
tanking even
allowed?
be allowed? Well, why tank actually? Start with that
Well,
actually. Why,
yeah. So why
what,
tank,
what
right?
is the loophole?
So recruiting top players, right, or recruiting players in general. When you have less scholarship players on your roster, it's favorable for those players. Presumably because they're going to get early playing time. There's no competition ahead of them, right? So if you're a top rated 5 star, you can step in day one into the lineup. You're probably going to jack up 10 to 15 shots a game, right? So that's sort of built into the code that if you're a higher rated player, you don't want to have competition, right? Which
Right.
is understandable. I mean, that's a reasonable expectation for top rated players. One would assume that that happens in real life too,
Mm-hmm.
at
Yeah.
times,
Yeah.
right? Um, so why don't you just go over a little bit like what the actual procedure for tanking is?
Yeah. So it entails not recruiting for a few years, not signing any recruits, um, and just focusing all of your contacts, all of your points for recruiting on very highly rated players. These 4s and 5 stars. Um, and then you get them, you dominate with them, or they dominate. You may not even be that good of a team still.
Yeah.
And you just enjoy that.
But I think the hope is
Um,
that you can sign like 2 or 3 guys one year, and then the next year you can sign 2 or 3 more. And then you're looking at like a top 5 depth chart, right? That's really good players that in two or
mhm.
three seasons is going to help you compete at like the
Right,
national level, right?
right. And then, but yeah, it's really just not signing players and then focusing your recruiting on those highly rated players. It has nothing to do with like real life tanking where you lose on purpose. You could be winning for during that whole time, but still technically tanking in this game.
Yeah.
Um, so that's basically, yeah, what tanking is in Hardwood. It's a bit different, but it's kind of the same idea.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, in terms of like, should tanking be allowed? We think about it a little bit. I personally don't like it because
Right.
I don't, it's not a competitive aspect of the game, in my opinion, right? Like, in what scenario would Duke basketball in real life have zero scholarship players so they could get like your Zion, for example? It would never happen, right?
Yeah.
It,
Yeah.
it, it would never happen on any team. I mean, if a head coach had 7 scholarship players and he's a D1 coach, he's probably getting fired, right? Like he's probably getting fired.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. If you only have 7 scholarships on your team, yeah, I mean, something's wrong.
Yeah. So I personally don't like it from a competitive standpoint. I think it just perpetuates a cycle where a team's really, has a ton of roster drop off and then recruits really, really well, and then has a good 3, 4 years, and then drops off again. But the thing that I think from a philosophical standpoint that bugs me the most is if we ever get our teams to like the very top division in the game, like are we going to have to tank in order to compete with those teams? Or like could recruiting year over year and just getting guys that aren't like the highest rated 5 stars, can we still compete? It might get to a point where like we have a ceiling in terms of what we can accomplish, and then we have to resort to tanking like everybody else. And I just that feels like it just doesn't feel right to the game, right? It doesn't, for me it just doesn't sit well. I don't know, what about you?
Yeah, for me, I'm against it because I'm a person who really appreciates having sustained success and having um, it be, yeah, well, it being sustainable, it not being where you need to have these peaks and valleys so much.
Yeah.
Um, and with your question with regards like, would we need to tank in order to get that high? To have those peaks and valleys and just eventually move up? I don't think so. Yeah, you want 4s and 5 stars, but you don't need a roster full of them regardless of what level you are.
Right.
You want high end 3 stars, high end 2 stars are fine.
Yeah.
Um,
But
you
then
know,
if you're recruiting high end 2 stars and they're developing year over year, and then they're getting dominated by a 5 star center who's an excellent shooter and a monster on the boards, it's going to be frustrating because that they
right.
just like use that loophole to get the guy that's dominating you, who's like scouted out players.
Well, there's always going to be peaks and valleys. Hopefully your 2 star is a senior and their 5 stars are freshmen. And so SI wise, skill wise, your guy's still better than them. And yeah,
Right.
maybe in a couple years it won't be that the case, but then you'll have other guys who are as good and can handle that 5 star. Um, so, it's, you can certainly beat teams full of, no team's full of 4 and 5 stars. First off,
Yeah.
you know, it's just simply not sustainable.
Yeah.
Um, so that's that's why I'm against it. It's just not sustainable.
Yeah.
And I understand the strategy. I understand the point of it. It's just not. I think it degrades the integrity of the game as well. And I know I sound like an old curmudgeon
I
when
know,
I say
right?
that,
Yeah.
um, because in real life, I'm fine with tanking. Like the 76ers process, I'm a fan of that. But in this game, it kind of just doesn't make sense. Like it
Yeah.
does in a way, but it also, again, it's not sustainable enough.
Yeah. I mean, in real life, there's repercussions to tanking, right? If you're the Sixers and you're bad year over year, you're not going to have as much sales in jerseys and team and arena selling out,
Yeah,
and
right.
you're probably not going to be as attractive to free agents, and so there's real life repercussions for tanking, that you can't really incur in this game, and so
Well, the thing for me is in real life, you only need to do it once, maybe twice, to like really shoot up.
yeah,
In here, in this game, you only get 4 or 5 years at most with a player. So again, you need to have those peaks and valleys,
yeah,
and so that's a lot. So that'd be really tough for me. Not that again, I'm not against tanking in real life. I've done it with the fantasy baseball team, but that'd be tough for me to endure, losses it's such heavy losses, seasons, such losing seasons, a lot, I
yeah,
want to win.
yeah.
I'm competitive.
I just don't think it's something that I'll ever resort to doing
Yeah.
personally. Um,
Yeah.
so you
So,
want to talk about some possible solutions?
yeah, well, let's talk about the current solution right now and how, again, it's a little frustrating for us given that we started with D3 teams and we have some teams in D2 now. We're moving up, but this current solution is still against us. It's
Yeah,
not in our favor. And that is that 4 and 5 stars, it's harder to get interest on them if you are Division 2 or Division 3. And we get it. That makes sense.
yeah,
That does make sense. But there are really good Division 2 teams, Division 3 teams that are going to move up and need those 4 stars, those 5 stars in order to be competitive once they get to D1, because they're going to be D1 in a season or two.
yeah. So what you have is sort of this like this you have D1, right, and the really good teams that are in D1, and then you have this big drop off into to D2, right? And so if a team makes that jump from D2 to D1, then they might be fighting to stay in that conference, or in the relegation zone or whatever. But in terms of just the overall talent distribution there, it's going to be such a tough battle to jump D2, D1, and stay there,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I know that probably a lot of guys that may be watching this, or the heaviest users in the Discord and stuff, you guys are D1, right? If you demote, you demote into like the second conference D1 or the third. Not a lot of teams are jumping down to D2, right? But
Right,
for a
right.
lot of users that like, I want to get there, I want to get to D1 and be that team, but I want to do it from a team that I started from the beginning, right? Like, you can understand our frustration. You can understand where that thought process comes from.
Yeah, and a few of the more active people, they did start in D3 or D2, and they would understand if these same restrictions were in place when they first started. And
Yeah.
think about how much harder it would have been. Um, and obviously, yeah, there's exception for everything. I'm sure several teams have never recruited a 4-star, 5-star, and been plenty successful, have moved up. But the game is just different now. There's more users who are smarter and better at this,
Yeah.
and there's more tankers though.
There. Yeah.
Um, and and again, it's not perfect either on the flip side of that, because a Division 1 team that is awful in tanking, like we've highlighted, and we're going to continue to highlight, they they're going to get that advantage of being in D1, but they're on their way down. And so then they're going to be in Division 2, Division 3 potentially, with a 5-star, 4-star, and dominating when they didn't deserve that.
Yeah.
That's not fair.
Yep. Yep. It's not like it's not like you're dropping from D1 to D2 right away. Some of these guys are going to go through the 3 D1 conferences before they boost back up, but they're staying D1, and that recruiting advantage stays across D1, right? So,
Mm-hmm.
it's just not ideal, at least I think from a competitive standpoint. Um,
So since we're gonna try to call out a tanking team every week, every time we do an episode at least, um, we're also gonna try to come up with a solution every week too. I mean, eventually we'll run out of ideas,
yeah,
but
it's
you know,
it's not it's not fair to criticize without being like, hey, here's the solution for it.
yeah.
Yeah. So a solution that I actually thought up pretty recently is so let's say there was a threshold for minimum amount of scholarship players that a team were to have, right? You can choose your number. Maybe it's 6, maybe it's 8, maybe it's 10, whatever like, that's open for discussion, right? But the idea is that, let's say you only recruit 3 guys for scholarship, and then let's say it's 8. The remaining
Mm-hmm.
5 spots that you're required to fill go to walk-on players, right? And so in that case, if you don't utilize your scholarships, they're going to go to walk-on players who are probably not going to be depth chart pieces,
Mm-hmm.
right? They're not going to be guys that are in your too deep. You don't want walk-ons that are 9 potential 75 SIs to be playing your backup small forward spot, right? You're going to get roasted in those bench minutes.
Yeah, yeah,
So it forces you to keep getting guys year after year, and then maintaining a certain scholarship roster size, that's at least somewhat competitive. And then you don't have the 0 scholarship players boost going to guys that are tanking, right?
right.
At that point, now you're required to maintain that limit. Everybody's going to be somewhat on a more competitive advantage in terms of their roster comp. Um, and I think it just really evens out and balances that competition for those guys.
Yeah, I really like that. It's definitely a big deterrent for not having enough scholarship players. Um, and I mean that's the main thing, but it also kind of puts a floor on how low you can go still too. Um, there might be different ways to improve that idea even. Maybe some of the better walk-ons or guys who would be walk-ons go to your team because they get the scholarship.
Right.
Some of the higher rated in SI, because there's different guys. So yeah, I really like that as a solution. I think that's a fantastic idea.
I think it's just a
Yeah.
starting point, right? Like, we just want to have discussions about these kinds of things and
Yeah. I mean, I
sort
don't
of
know
see
how to
where it takes
code
us.
that.
Yeah, exactly, right, Steve. Like, I suggest this. I cannot code it for my life.
Yeah.
So
So But we hope just with the discussion we can improve it and make it able to be in the game, if it works.
Yeah,
You know.
yeah.
So that's a bit of a negative thing. So let's go on to a little bit more of a positive,
Let's end
lighthearted thing.
this 2-hour podcast with a fun, lighthearted segment that we
Yeah.
plan to do each week.
Oh, and there's plenty of content here, so
Oh,
we're
yeah.
not gonna run out.
So go ahead and introduce us to this segment.
All right. So this segment is called the Bot Team of the Week.
Bot team of the week.
Again, we want this game to grow with users, with human users, not bots. We don't like bots. So we want to highlight a bot team or two. We're each gonna pick one for maybe a new owner or one of these existing owners to take over a second team. There's different ways to approach it. You could take a complete project of a team that's in shambles and build them up. That's super fun.
Yep.
Or you take a competitive team and ride them to success because they're already good. You want to win. Let's win.
And these bot team of the weeks might also just be situations that we find funny, right? It could be anything.
Yeah.
We're just gonna roll with it and see what happens.
And there's lots of bot teams. So
Oh
yeah.
yeah,
So Rob,
there's all sorts of variations.
what's your bot team of the week?
So my bot team of the week is the Adelphi Panthers from Garden City, Utah. Now they just promoted to Conference V2, so congratulations for them. That's a D2 squad, right? But they are currently 1-3 in their 4 non-con games. They're last in conference. But if you sort in the rankings by RPI, which is the natural way that it sorts, they're third.
Whoa.
They're third in Division 2 in RPI.
Wait, well, they're 1-3.
1-3,
third.
and they're third. And you might be asking why.
I am asking why. Why is that?
They have an insane schedule so far, right? So their strength of schedule is 0.730.
730.
730. I have never once seen anything above 0.73. If you're like 0.6 or above, it's pretty competitive, right? 0.65, it's insane. 0.730.
Yeah.
Okay. That's really good. Their RPI is 0.635 and they have a negative 165 point differential. So the game's like, okay, your team not necessarily sucks, but your team's getting blown out, but it's because they're playing really good teams.
Right.
And so they've already played Valparaiso, the number 25 team in the game, twice in their 4 non-con games.
Huh.
Okay. They lost, and they're both on the road. They lost 99-46 and 109-42.
They're both on the road.
They're both on the road. Yeah.
Come
They're
on.
both
Your AD couldn't even schedule a home and home.
I mean, exactly. What are you doing? So that's really tough to play the number 25 team twice, right?
Yeah.
They also had to face D1 Augustana. And that was at home, and they lost 97-50. Okay. Wow. But their one win is against Mississippi State, 75-73 on the road. Okay, who is a pretty decent D2 team.
Yeah, that is a really good win.
That's a good road win. I'd be pretty happy with that with any of my teams.
Yeah.
So they've got a good road win and then 3 insane road losses, or 3 insane total losses. So I think that's just pretty hilarious. And their best player on their team's a 140 SI, 2-star, 11 potential point guard.
Mm-hmm.
So you don't really if that's your best player, you're probably not in the greatest position. But they have some nice size in the front court, right? They have a 6'10" power forward and a 6'11" center. So I don't know, maybe that's going to help buoy them this season. But I just think it's hilarious. You sort by RPI, the number 3 team in RPI is 1-3.
Yeah, that's a really interesting situation there. Like you said, they're competitive.
Yeah.
They got some size. That's pretty intriguing squad to potentially take over. Yeah. So, anyone's interested in the second team, look up Adelphi.
And presumably their schedule next season will not be anywhere near as tough.
Yeah, right.
Presumably, yeah.
Presumably, yeah.
So do you wanna highlight your bot team of the week for us?
Yeah, my bot team of the week is the Houghton. I don't know how to say the name. Houghton? No, it's definitely not that. Highlanders. So let's go over some of their specs. They're the 988th ranked team in rating, at least rated team in the whole game. There's only 1,004. So they're like a They're like a bottom 20 program in the history of this game. The fan mood, it's not good. Alumni mood, not good. But they have 30 prestige. That's going to carry some weight in recruiting.
Yeah.
They're in New York. That's a very good recruiting state. Very, we talked about California earlier. New York is just as good. Um, so you got some advantages there. The coaches, it could use some work,
Yeah.
but that's easy to change. The roster is not the best.
It's bad.
I mean, there's a reason they are the one of the worst teams in the game. I chose a real project of a team. Rob chose a more competitive team. I'm choosing a project. So I'll just start with the real killer. Their TPI. Their TPI is 96.3. Oh my gosh. Anything under 100, you're scared. You're scared for
Anything
your season.
close to 100, you're scared for your
Yeah.
season.
Yeah, exactly. Um, but they've got some size. They've got a 6'10 senior who's the best player. And yeah, he's not good overall, but size matters in this game.
For
So
reference,
6'10.
real quick,
Mhm.
Houghton is 1003 in TPI. The bottom is 1008.
Oh, so they're the second worst team in terms of TPI in the entire game, in the entire
No,
universe.
they're the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. They're the six. Six.
Six.
They're 1003, and then the worst is 1008.
Oh, I forgot how many teams there were. I
Yeah,
thought there were 1,004. Okay.
1008.
Yeah. So they're the sixth worst team. Sorry. Um, wow. Oh, I've got a hole in me. Um, but they've
Sorry, I
also
didn't mean
got
to
some.
interrupt.
No, it's okay. They will cut that out in editing. Um, they also have some size beyond that. They've got a 6'9 junior power forward who I think just scored 22 points in his last game, and I'll get into that. This is why they're really interesting.
Oh yeah.
They got a 6'9 freshman, a 6'6 freshman, a 6'9 sophomore, and a 6'11 sophomore. And again, their TPI is not that great, but that sheer size is going to make a big difference. And yeah, you need some guards with this team, some perimeter guys, but size is the hardest thing to find in this game,
Mm-hmm.
and Houghton has it. Now, the real reason why they caught my eye, though, is their past game at home against number 9 Kansas State. Kansas State is run by one of the most active, experienced presidents in the entire universe. They're a former national champion, I think. Pretty sure. Yes, they are.
Yeah.
They're in the top conference. Kansas State only beat Houghton by 6. Kansas State, with a TPI in the high 140s, only beat a team with a TPI of 96.3 by 6.
81-75.
81 to 75. Yeah, it was at Houghton. Okay, that plays into it. But again, that junior power forward scored 22 points against Kansas State. That's surprising.
And yeah, it was at Houghton, but the attendance was what, 524.
Kansas State was quite a draw.
Yeah.
So the Houghton Highlanders, I would really take a look at them if you're interested at picking up another team. That is a project. It'll take some work to build up, but they've got talent, they've got size, they've got a good recruiting situation. We'll need to change the coaches, but they can compete. They're gonna be tough, and if you're interested in them, dear viewer, you can make them tougher.
You can actually beat Kansas State
You can
rather than
actually
just
beat.
losing by 6.
Yeah, imagine if Houghton beat Kansas State.
We would probably spend like 10 minutes talking about that.
Yeah, that'd be a huge story.
Yeah.
All right, so that's our bot team of the week. That's our last segment for today, at least.
Yeah. I mean, we've already
We'll
run
think
2
of some
hours.
other. We'll try to think of other segments, but yeah, we've already been at 2 hours, so
We have lots of ideas for segments, but we might which ones we think are the best, we'll probably just cycle week over week and highlight new teams and stuff.
And if anyone watching this or listening to this has any ideas, we are open. Again, we're new to this. We're just starting. So we'd love to hear feedback.
Yeah, and I
on
mean,
this.
dude, if anybody out there is interested in contributing, like get in contact with us. You know, we want to grow this. We want this to be a community thing. We're starting it off, but like we'd love to do features on teams and
Teams and
players. Yeah,
presidents and players, yeah.
yeah.
So I'm Andrew, obviously. I'm guard 710 on Discord. I run Dominican, California University, and the College of New Rochelle, in case you want to message me. Yeah.
And yeah, so I'm simple enough RC. I run Santa Clara, Oswego, SUNY Oswego, and Texas A&M Kingsville. So hit us up on Hardwood or message us on the Discord. Let us know if you have any ideas for new segments or you have any rebuttals to any of our arguments today. Or if you want to be a contributor, just hit us up on one of those. And, you know, we'd love to hear from you guys.
Yeah. So yeah, we're hoping to make this a weekly thing, get into some deeper ideas, and just talk about hardwood like we normally do.
Yeah. Yeah. And we're
Also,
gonna we're gonna upload
a
this to
name of
YouTube.
the show. A name we don't know yet. We're
We don't
thinking.
even know the name of the show, so we've had some ideas. If you guys are creative, let us know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
All right. Signing off. Until
Signing
next
off
week.
next week.
See you then.